If we simply look at this as a jail, we're missing the point. I think it's why I went to the county council members and discussed this as a public safety tax. And I've noticed that that term's being used now because we're now dedicating 25% of the monies toward diversions. But that doesn't make this tax any different than what it already was. It was a jail tax and it still is a jail tax. A public safety tax deals with all the things that we're being hit with as a council. So we're right now, I hear often, we're in a homelessness crisis, we're in an affordable housing crisis, and we're in a criminal justice crisis. And I often have 9 and 11-year-old, and I always tell them when they're in that moment of a crisis, they're in their emotional brain, and they need to take a moment, and they need to deep breathe, and they need to use the other parts of their brain, those thinking pieces that can help them understand what the next step is. Because if they respond in a crisis moment, they're going to create more crisis. It's just how it works. I deal with students all the time, and it's something that we always tell them. And I think right now in our society, we keep responding in crisis mode. And what we're going to do is my children are going to come up in 20 years and we're going to hand them more crisis because it's so difficult to stop, and people are going to get hurt and uncomfortable things are going to happen. But it makes us really focus in and use that part of our brain that makes the connections. And so, I appreciate the Vera Institute. I wish that was videotaped and that we could have watched it. We were in the middle of doing our planning committee and advocating for source of income discrimination when that was being presented. So I'm glad that you were able to go and make it back for both. My 2-year-old was diagnosed with arthritis, and I learned 2 words I never had heard before, and one was idiopathic and one was systemic. And I remember like talking with the children doctors and being like, what do those words mean? Like, my kid is just really sick and please tell me. And so they had to really dumb it down for me. But idiopathic was, we don't know why your kid has this. And systemic was, he has it all over his body. So it's not just like his knees, it's like his neck one day and his shoulder. And I think that this report says this is systemic. This is all over. And if we just focus on one piece, we're in a lot of trouble. It's not idiopathic, though. We know exactly where it came from. This was designed, these processes, these systems that we have, they were very much designed. And I think that's our opportunity to take a step back and give our county council what we did in that letter. I do appreciate the give and take that happened, but ultimately it's just things are out of order. We're finally getting to the place where we need to go, and we're going to respond, in my opinion, in crisis mode. And I do ultimately respect all of my other council members and the county council as well. I mean, I'm really amazed at how well we can have these difficult, and then we move right to the next thing and deal with source of income discrimination or whatever that is. So I do have the utmost respect for each one of these individuals. They're fighting a difficult fight, and they truly believe something different than what you or I believe. And so I hope you'll understand how hard that everybody works up here and still be extremely respectful to each of them for their decision. I'm ultimately, of course, a no vote. I've been a no vote all along. I'll say my last thing. I say this often to a lot of constituents, but something always sticks in my mind. My mom always told me when I was dating, listen, and you guys are probably like, oh, she's saying it again. She'd always tell me, April, you have to listen to what they do and not to what they say. And I've always, I keep that in my heart whenever I'm making decisions up here. So when we did, although not everybody felt like we did it as far as we needed to with immigration reform and some changes in policing, this is still another example. We made a resolution within that said we want to care about all people and make sure all people are protected. Well, we have created for some a very sacred bubble inside Bellingham. For some of the families that I deal with and work with, they don't want to go outside of the city of Bellingham. And we know that a disproportionate number of those families are the ones that are incarcerated. And now we're going to be asking them to go visit their family members who are disproportionately jailed to go outside of their safety bubble that we've been trying to create here in Bellingham. So it's so many different reasons that if that is the only location, I just need to understand exactly why, and I haven't been shown that. I also don't believe that we have any idea of what the impacts will be for moving this jail. I don't. I think it's unfortunate that all the money that we get back, it might just be more FTEs, more full-time police officers, only because they're offline, not because we have new social service officers and mental health officers and people to ride along with the community paramedic, because more than likely we're going to find out that we're going to have to subsidize WTA, we're going to have to find more officers, whatever that is. And I think that that's very unfortunate. This is about $11 million a year, as I can calculate, because it's about $350 million by 2048. And that's after bond payments. That does not include the monies that we'll be paying for booking fees and others. And that'll be 2048. In the year 2044, this nation will be a majority minority. That means the entire population will be more people of color. And I think that's a beautiful thing in some ways, but these systems don't intuitively change themselves. We do it right now. So that's my plea.
I guess I'd like to say a few words. All along, I think that the county's approach to this has been unbalanced. It's a fundamental difference in philosophy. I think that there are people who believe that our community is safer when more people are locked up. I think the community is safer when there are fewer people committing crimes. There's fewer reasons to lock people up. It's called a public safety tax. Under law, it always should have been a public safety tax, but de facto it had become a jail tax, and that was what was wrong with it, is that it was all about the jail. The original proposal was to use like 100% of the money for the jail, sucking all the air out of the room. The new agreement, financially speaking, leaves the city with half of the money not going into the jail. And it's those dollars that we can use to rebalance the picture. It's those dollars that we would have to pay for addiction treatment, to pay for mental health programs, to pay for support programs for retraining and reentry so people can, not return to the cycle of crime, or just programs to divert them before they even get arrested, like the triage center or the GRACE program. Those are the sorts of things we would have money for now. That's the rebalancing that I would like to see. But more than that, we've now negotiated an agreement where the county too is obligated to pay for those alternatives. There's now money that would be set aside, now baked into the set of legal agreements on what happens to do with the money. To me, the fundamental flaw with the approach has been addressed, that there was no money for the alternatives, no guarantees for it. Well, now there's money, now there's guarantees. With that fundamental problem out of the way, and the fundamental problem that Pinky talked about, where the city's being asked to pay too much, and the other fundamental issue is there was no such thing as the Vera Institute report. There was no such thing as the Incarceration Reduction and Prevention Task Force. Right after that one failed, several council members and I, county council members and city council members, we got together and said, what do we really want to do on justice? We talked about it, we developed an idea. The county council introduced a series of principles, and they focused on public safety first. They focused on addressing root causes. They focused on healing and improving lives rather than just simply punishing people who made the wrong choices or through disability or dysfunction or addiction committed crimes. That's the orientation that I've been fighting for all along. I haven't succeeded in everything. The location is wrong. We're keeping asked, don't vote to move the jail. We wouldn't. None of us up here, I don't think. Maybe I can speak for all of you. I certainly wouldn't vote to move the jail. Never wanted to move the jail. It's never been a good idea at all for me, ever. But I've talked to the county council about that. We've sent a letter to the county council about that. They know we don't like the location. They haven't changed on that. They spent their money years ago, and they've committed to it. Try to change it, can't change it. Well, so what can we do? Well, A, we've readjusted the fundamental imbalance. B, we've addressed the unfairness of it. What else is in here? Well, the other big thing people attack is the size of the jail, the mega jail, the mass incarceration jail. That's hyperbole. It's not actually true. This isn't the 1,000-bed jail it once was, or the 800, or the 600, or the 500-bed jail it once was. It's a much smaller jail. No, there's not 220 people in the jail, it's 330. You have to remember there's a second jail facility, the work center, which, by the way, if you've been there, is also not a great place to be. It is also fundamentally misdesigned, fundamentally unsafe. So there's actually 330 people who are currently in jail. It's called the average daily population. And so a 440-bed jail isn't so unreasonable. It's not the mega jail it once was. People say you shouldn't be funding the jail, it's a moneymaker. It's not a moneymaker, it's a money loser. Costs every one of us a lot of money. We're spending, I think, $1.6 million a year we send across the way to take care of our prisoners, and we're trying to find ways to reduce that number by releasing people early, electronic home monitoring, alternatives. We're trying to drive that money down. No one's making money off of this jail, maybe the people who build it, but not us, not the public. That's why we've been fighting for a smaller jail. That's why I want to pay $30 million for alternatives, because I think those will return far more than that in benefits and savings, moral benefits and financial savings. It's not a perfect plan. Yeah, it reduces a regressive sales tax. I don't like that. But you know what? We also have an even more regressive tax right here in Bellingham, 11% utility tax on basic fundamentals. Every time it comes up, an opportunity, I bring that up. I would like to see fundamental tax reform. I think there's an opportunity for us when we look at other financial things to reduce that regressive tax. I'm concerned about regressive taxes, but you know, I said when I went to the county council, I said that what you need to do is understand the drivers of your capital spending. It's a fundamental principle the city of Bellingham adopted several years ago. If we're going to have to spend a whole lot of money on something, we want to know why we're spending money on this. We just spent $50 million on a sewage treatment plant. But before we did that, we said, why is it costing so much to expand the sewage treatment plant? Turns out half the reason is we have leaky pipes. I didn't know this, but it turns out water leaks into pipes, not out of pipes. Wet ground in rainy season, water flows in. You get excess water going to the sewage treatment plant. You've got to build a much larger plant to deal with that extra volume in millions and millions of gallons. Or you can spend a lot less money and fix the leaky pipes, which is what we did. We understood the drivers for that huge capital project, and we saved ourselves money. I think the county should have done that before. The county is now starting to do that. The county now has the Incarceration Reduction Task Force recommendations, and the county now is the Vera Institute. So I'm hoping now there's a broader understanding of the drivers. I'm hoping now we can agree on what kind of benefits we can have. And the next few months, I'm hoping that the county and the task force and everyone gets on board in addressing those drivers of the jail population so we can keep the population as low as possible. That's our goal. But what's before us today is a cost-sharing agreement. And there's nothing wrong with a cost-sharing agreement. The cost-sharing is fair. The cost-sharing agreement is not to blame. The location is not great. The sales tax, not perfect. The size shouldn't be determined yet. I get all of that. But as you said, Pinky, that over there is not the jail we want. Even if we were to have it fixed up for us free, it's still not the jail we want. So if you think that people need to be treated humanely and given a chance to mend their ways and not be made hardened criminals, then you don't want them in that jail even if it is fixed up. You want them in a new jail, a humane jail. And I'd like that humane jail to be located right here in downtown Bellingham. Thank you. I'm sorry I went on so long. Roxanne?
As a member of the Nooksack Indian tribe, you can imagine this has been anything but easy for me. Also with a master's degree in public administration and a very level head about governance. So one thing I'd like to start by saying is that my tribe in particular, and so many tribes, have these incredible programs, and programs that are growing and improving the lives of our tribal members so that it's the ultimate hope that they will not use substances, they will not go to jail, and they will live a better life. These are programs through social services, through the youth department that I manage, through Indian child welfare, through, you can imagine our court system works to improve this, everything. In spite of all of that, we still have to send our tribal members to jail. Things happen, and we need to provide protections for our people. And so for that reason and others that I will state, I would really rather that the tribal members that go to the jail have a better circumstance with better services behind them so that when they come home, we can continue to rehabilitate our people our way, with our culture. But we need help with that. It was really scary the last time we said no on this. The voters said no, and then we wound up with some booking restrictions for the city of Bellingham. That was terrifying to me as somebody who fights against domestic violence, and it was very scary to think that people that committed crimes like domestic violence might not have a place to go until we got our systems in place to deal with that at the city level. I'm not saying that the county would do that again, but I'm saying the county had the authority to do that to us in the first place, and that was awful to go through. With this current issue, we have so many different perspectives at play. So definitely I recognize all of your concerns and all of the feedback that you have, every bit of testimony that you provided. We also have been knocked on, our door has been knocked on by people that work in the jail and that feel very insecure about their safety going to work every day. And then I also worry about the safety and security of the inmates. If something bad were to happen and I would vote no, this would weigh so heavy on my psychology. And how would I deal with that? That I belabored an issue even further, knowing that we already had an unsafe circumstance. If there was a fatality, how would that weigh on my psychology? This is really makes it a very complicated situation. At the same time, I'm really worried that if we vote no, the tremendous cost it would create for our city. And one of our major responsibilities up here is fiduciary responsibility in managing our dollars in the best way that we can. I know this isn't an ideal situation. I know this isn't for everybody. But when we have so many competing forces aligning all at once, the fairest thing I can do is ask the voters to please have say. Turn it to the voters so you can vote no, so you can vote yes, so you can vote any way you want. Because that's the thing that makes the most sense to me at this point. That's the thing that I can be the most fair with. I mean, it's not going to be ideal at any point. We're always going to have adversaries about a jail. But I just have to believe that this is something we have to try, and the voters will have their say, and it will be determined what it is that are our community values through your vote. So I'll be supporting this.
Gene?
Yeah, I want to start out by echoing what April said a while ago. It is a pleasure to sit up here and serve with people who can disagree and not be disagreeable and be able to sit up here or go to functions together and speak to each other. But for me, I'm going to go back to 1994. One of the first issues I was faced with as a newly elected council member was a $6 million lawsuit by Whatcom County because the city of Bellingham refused to pay their per day share of the jail because we weren't getting itemized bills on what the heck we were paying for. So we held out for as long as we could until we were facing that lawsuit. And when Mayor Mark and Pete got elected, they hammered that out and they got it figured out. And from that point on, we've always had a great relationship when it comes to the jail until what happened 2 years ago. This jail goes beyond just the jail. The relationship that we have with the Whatcom County Council is very important. And the fact that we were able to hammer out a better deal financially for the city of Bellingham, because if people think Ferndale isn't the right location, I don't think Yakima is either, because that's where they're going to go. And that's because we cannot build a new jail. The economics of that doesn't pan out for us at all. The mayor's never wanted to be in the jail business. The city's never wanted to be in the jail business. I applaud everything we're doing by trying to keep as many people out of jail as possible. But this is the right position for the city of Bellingham to take. It's now up to the county council, and the fact that all jurisdictions are on board, there shouldn't be any more messing with restrictions and that kind of thing. We're all on the same page, and I just think it's the best thing for us to do, and the vote tomorrow night will tell us which way they're going to go, but we've done our job, and I want to really thank Terry and Michael for their working with Carl, Satpal, and Rudd on this. Thanks for taking the extra time and the extra will to hammer this out, because in my opinion, the mayor's office, the city council, the county council, the county executive, we've all gone to the wall on it now. This is it, and it's up to the voters of Whatcom County. So.
Any further discussion? We have a motion before us today to approve, sorry, I had to turn pages. Approve an interlocal agreement known as the Jail Facilities Financing and Use Agreement. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
No.
That passes 5-2. Thank you very much. The third item has to do with the jail also, but it is for information only. It is the county's ordinance, which they would pass to put the sales tax on the ballot if they so choose. That was for information only. I believe we then go on to There's no minutes to approve, so old and new business. We want to go back to old and new business? Roxanne?
The city council supported asking our community to decline to sign Initiative 1552, which would ban transgender people from bathrooms. And I was really happy to hear during our Pride weekend that the people that were trying to gather signatures failed. So therefore, this will not go on the ballot. And so I like to think that, you know, optimistically, we had a say in that. And I really thank everybody that supported that initiative. And the fact that that never went to the ballot is very meaningful for so many people in our state.
Pinky?
This weekend I had an opportunity to participate in our Pride Parade and in our festival, and I just want to thank all the volunteers, our Bellingham Police Department, and our firefighters for volunteering and participating and making an absolutely great day where we got to celebrate diversity and freedom in our beautiful city. So I just wanted to thank everybody who participated and attended. We have an amazing city.
April?
I wanted to just, I guess I'm asking for help with process. We voted to start a justice committee, and then the process, I know Roxanne Murphy asked us to make sure we're being reasonable with, or I guess, following order on who we elect to that. So is that something that we can do this evening? Is that something that has to be brought to a different committee? Can
No,
people
we
say
could
if
do
they-
that anytime the council body to appoint the chair and the 2 new members to the Justice Committee. We don't have to do it tonight, but we could do it tonight. I don't know if people feel prepared to nominate and vote on membership for the new Justice Committee or not. For the public, the Justice Committee would be taking over some of the issues that we currently potentially might go into community development or might go into the public safety division to kind of focus a lot of the issues we're talking about now with the judicial system and broader justice issues to direct those to one particular committee, which may or may not be a standing committee for long, but it's currently, we just created a new standing committee. What is the will? Do we want to vote on membership tonight, Pinky?
I wouldn't mind if we had a little bit of opportunity to flesh this out a little bit and talk about when it's going to be and all of those other things before I'm very supportive, but I'd like to look at this a little broader on what it's going to encompass, when it's going to be, those kinds of things.
Okay, so
Dan, excuse me, Dan and then Terry.
I'm not prepared to have that tonight. I think that I echo Councilmember Vargas's opinion that we need to have a little more background on this, but I do support it.
Terry?
Yeah, and I think it should be, we should have some more time with it. One, we don't know, we just heard about it today. We don't know who all up here wants to be on it, even. We've heard a couple people, but we haven't, you know, that doesn't mean others. So people should have a chance to see what it's all about, and they want to be on it, and so we can vote on that, and people can consider it.
like the work of the committee was going to be those committee members working with the judicial arm and figuring out exactly what we'd be looking at. So I'm happy to go ahead and work with Arlene and take a look at those things, and if any other council members are interested, and then I'll just put an agenda bill in and we'll have it in the committee of the whole.
Yeah, we
Okay.
we could either do it with an agenda bill and committee of the whole, or just bring it up under old business. It probably would be good if you were to write up a little something on the scope of the committee and possible subjects that would be referred to the committee. The way our committee structure works is anything referred to the committee by the council must be accepted. Otherwise, the committee chair has the control over the agenda for that committee, which presumably will be developed with the other committee members. So that's how our committee structure works. So we'll bring that back in 2 weeks or 4 weeks, depending. Okay? Anything else under old and new? I would like to mention that the Veer Institute did report today, but we had a missed opportunity. We didn't schedule them to present to the City Council. So I've talked with the County Council member who's in charge of that, and we're talking about it with this body. The next time they come back in fall, we're going to try to schedule it so they also give a brief presentation to our council, assuming the days line up nicely, which they may or may not do. Finally, I'd like to mention that a local group, not the city, held a homeless person summit in Maritime Heritage Park this last Saturday, which I attended. It was a really excellent event. It was a listening session for people to take down the stories and understand what people experiencing homelessness face as challenges. And the issue of homelessness and affordable housing, low-income housing, has been something the city's been working on increasingly over the last few years, and that's one of the reasons why I thought it'd be important to report about that. Anything else under old and new? Okay, executive session report. We had 2 items in executive session. One was litigation, the other was potential litigation. In the litigation matter of Swadesh versus City of Bellingham, we were provided with information, but for information only, no discussion, no action was taken. On potential litigation item, staff again provided information on potential litigation matter. It was for information discussion only, no action was taken in that item either. We now go on to the mayor's report. I see Brian is here in the mayor's.
Thank you, Brian Heinrich, Mayor's Office. I have one item that is for your information. The mayor will reappoint Edmund Sullivan to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. That's it.
Okay, consent agenda?
Move approval.
I have no idea.
I think it was Dan, believe it or not. He beat me, yeah.
Okay, that was moved by Dan, seconded by Roxanne.
And I was left out in the.
All those in favor of the consent agenda signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? That passes unanimously. Is there any final readings? I don't think there are. Okay, is there any further business before the Bellingham City Council? Thank you everyone for your hard work tonight. This meeting is adjourned.